Well, what's up, everybody? Great to see you guys. My name is Mike, in case we've never met before, and I have the privilege of just being on the teaching team around this place and showing up from time to time, and always a thrill for me to get to be at Pinelake. I want to welcome all the campuses. See if I get this right. Madison, Clinton, Starkville, Oxford, the Res. Those of you that might be joining us online as well, thanks for making Pinelake part of your Memorial Day weekend. And I, too, want to add my deep gratitude for those who have made the ultimate sacrifice so that you and I could live free. My dad was a World War II veteran, got the Purple Heart, made a lot of sacrifices and had a lot of fallout from his injuries. So I'm really, really thankful for everybody who has served in some way. Chip just finished up a great series called Here's the Deal, where he looked at 5 different principles where God says, if you do this, then I will do this, such as if you humble yourself, then I will lift you up. If you honor your folks, then all your relationships will thrive. Just a lot of great stuff. Next weekend, Chip is going to begin a series called Offended. And it seems like more and more people get easily offended these days. And if it offends you that we're going to do a series on this, you need to be here next weekend, because we're going to talk about how, take a deep look at why we get offended and how we should respond to offense, and why holding on to an offense is damaging to all your relationships, actually damaging to your soul. And as followers of Jesus, how we could go on offense without being offensive. So you need to come back next week. I wish I could be here for the series, but I'm going to watch it online. So today is kind of stand in the gap of 2 series. So I just thought that I would just share some simple principles that I've been reflecting on. And I've just been praying that God would encourage you today, whatever season of life that you currently might be in. And all of us are in different seasons. And I've given this a lot of thought, and I'm a pretty simplistic thinker, but this is the way I've kind of figured out life to be. And it doesn't always go like this, but I think life is pretty much just a different modes of transportation. You kind of start out this way, right? This is your first mode of transportation as a kid. It's called a baby walker, where you get behind this thing and you push it around, and you kind of follow around. Or have you seen the kind, when my kids were little, they were like, you set them in it, and they had a tray on it. Everybody ever seen, you know what I'm talking about? Where you put like Cheerios in the tray. It's like your first drive-through experience. And you'll be doing that the rest of your life, driving through, eating in the car, right? But that's how you kind of start out at this baby walker. And then you kind of graduate over to the big wheel. Anybody ever had a big wheel or had kids with big, these things are awesome. In fact, I just saw some little kids the other day in my daughter's cul-de-sac, like spinning out on these things. They were just having a blast riding these big wheels. I had a friend whose kids, now this guy is a coach, and he's just out of control athletically, and his kids are too. But when they were little kids, he would enter them in big wheel races. And he would train his kids. He would tie concrete blocks on the back of the big wheel and have them ride their big wheels up. I'm not making this up. Had them ride it uphill. These kids would kill everybody in these big wheel races. But that when you graduate to a big wheel, it's just like it's so fun as a kid. But then you get one of these. Anybody remember your first bike? I remember my first bike as a kid. It was I'm going to date myself a little bit. Stingray bike. Anybody remember a Stingray bike? Had a big banana seat on it and like handlebars like a Harley. It was just like coolest bike ever. And I would I used to collect, when I was a kid, I collect baseball cards. And there are these things called clothespins. You've probably never seen a clothespin in your life. But you would take a clothespin, you would put these baseball cards on the spokes of the wheels of your bike, and I would ride around like, brrr, like I was on a Harley or something. And I played Little League Baseball, and I perfected this thing where I'd hang my glove on the handlebars of the bike, and I would ride my bike to practice every day. And how about, I'm going down the road, doing that thing, and I ride up to the park, and I had this thing perfected where I could dismount my bike with one foot on the pedal and one hand on the handlebar, grab my glove in one motion, hop off, and let the bike just keep going. It would crash into the fence. It was like, I'm here. It was like 9-year-old cool. It's just what it was, man. But man, when you're a kid and you get your first bike, there's like this feeling of freedom, isn't there? And then you kind of move on from the bike, where the bike's not so cool anymore. And I can't think of another mode of transportation to describe this season of your life, but you know what I'm talking about. You get in this season of your life, maybe you're like in middle school, and everything's just wobbly. You know what I'm talking about? You get this season of your life, you're going, what's happened to me? My voice is changing, and it cracks every time I open my mouth, and I got like a hair under my arms. What's going on in my life right now? And everything when I was in middle school, I was 4'11", and I had a 6'3" friend. This is the way it is in middle school. Everything's just kind of weird in your life. And then you kind of graduate from that, and you get your license. You remember your first car? I guarantee you, my first car was no one in this place had the first car that I had. My dad was kind of an eclectic dude, and he worked at the post office most of his life. And so when I was 16, he bought me a mail truck. That was my first car. I'm driving on the right side of this mail truck in a stand-up stool like this with a cage behind me. Chicks dig the mail truck. Not really. But I drove a 16-year-old guy driving a mail truck around. But I remember how cool it felt when you first got your license, man. You got your hands at 10 and 2, and you're driving. It's just like freedom, and then eventually gets to the point where you got the window down, you got your hand out the window. Now you got one hand on the wheel, living on the edge, and you're doing this thing. You got the music cranked up, and then your girlfriend sits right next to you. Like I had a car, the car I used to borrow from when my mail truck died after about 3 weeks. We had a bench seat in the front. So my girlfriend was snuggled up close to me. So I'm driving now. I got this hand on the wheel. I got my arm around my girlfriend, driving around. And then eventually getting married, and she moves way over there. And then before you know it, you're driving around with car seats in the back, and some kid kicking the back of your seat as you're trying to drive. And then all of a sudden, the car seats are gone, and you're driving around going to dinner at 4:30 so you can get home and watch Wheel of Fortune. That's just the way it goes, right? That's just the season of life. And then there's one day you just go, you know what? I'm never, ever going to drive another minivan ever again in my life. And so you decide, you know what? It's time to get one of these. And so you do. You get one of these. I can't get on it. But you get one of these, and you're riding around. It feels so good. You're so free. You're riding this thing, and you're letting the wind blow through your scalp. And it's kind of like, born to be wild. You're driving this thing, and man, it just feels so great that you're finally living out your dream. And then your next mode of transportation is this, because you had no purpose being on that thing in the first place. You should not have gotten one of those. So now you're here. Let me just say a real quick word to some of you. This is not like a season of your life. It's kind of the way it is right now. And I just know that all of our campuses, some of you struggle to make it here every weekend because of something that's keeping you from, walking, or it takes you a long time to get ready because of an illness. Or I just want to say to you on behalf of everybody in the Pinelake family, you guys are our heroes. What you do every weekend just to get here and the way you live your life, I just applaud you today. So proud of you. You're an inspiration to all of us. In fact, it's really cool. I've been a part of a church that's been doing this for over 20 years now. We started a thing called the Jesus Prom 20 years ago, and it's evolved into all kinds of stuff. In fact, the Tim Tebow Foundation picked it up about 4 or 5 years ago and started these Shine events. And we got it happening this Friday night at the Ventura Fairgrounds in Ventura, California. A 7-year-old church throwing this party for special needs students. It's a prom it is a blowout prom with red carpet and paparazzi lining the carpets, flashing flash bulbs, and DJ thumping music, and limo rides, and free tuxes, and free prom dresses, and makeup and hair, and all this free food. It's just an awesome event. 450 special needs students will be there. We have over 2,000 volunteers in the Ventura County community showing up to help throw this party for special needs students. And we call it a night to remember, and it is a night to remember, where people get treated like a VIP, and it is so fun. And that's getting ready to happen here in Ventura Friday night, and I can't wait to be a part of that. Then you kind of move on eventually to this season of your life where a little tougher to get around. Your body doesn't work as good as it used to work. And I saw my friend Jim, just yesterday before I came here, he walks every day. In fact, his name is Jim, but I called him Dan for 3 years. He was too nice to tell me his name was Jim. so I still call him Dan just for fun. But Dan walks around our block twice around the block every day. It's 2 miles all the way around, twice around. And he's 85 years old. And I'm not kidding you. He walks no faster than this the entire time. I don't know how long it takes him to get around our block 2 times. But I told him the other day, I said, man, Jim, Dan, you're my hero, man. When I'm 85, I hope I'm doing what you're doing. It's just the kindest guy. But I think it's just kind of the way life goes, right? It really is kind of from the walker to the walker. That's kind of the way life goes. Now let me just share just a couple of reflections that I've had about all this. And the first one is this, and it's just super simple today. Life is so short. Have you guys figured that out yet? All of this happens in the blink of an eye. You know, I remember when I was a young guy, people would tell me, son, enjoy these days in your life because they go so fast. And I thought, man, that's just what old people say. Now that I'm old people, let me tell you something. Enjoy. This happens so fast. It goes by in the blink of an eye. I live in Ventura, California these days, and we have a thing in May called May Gray. Now, the weather there is spectacular almost year-round, but in May, the marine layer rolls in over the ocean, and there's fog all over the city until about 10 o'clock in the morning. All through May is kind of like that, kind of a May gray. And it reminds me of this verse of Scripture. It's found in James chapter 4, verse 14. It says, your life is like that. Your life is like the morning fog. It's here for a little while. Then around 10 o'clock, it burns off. I mean, it's just gone. That's why old man Moses wrote this in Psalm chapter 90, where he said, oh, Lord, please, just teach us to number our days and recognize in reality just how few they are. Help us to spend them as we should. There's this guy named Solomon. You can read about him in the Old Testament section of the Bible. He was a king and a really wealthy guy and a wise guy, but he made a lot of mistakes. He disconnected from God and got a lot of things wrong in his life. And then at the end of his life, he wrote in this journal called Ecclesiastes about all the mistakes he'd made and things he had learned along the way. And he gets to the end of the journal and he just poetically reflects. And he just says, don't do what I did. Look what he says. He goes, don't do what I did. Remember your Creator in the days of your youth. Hook up with God early on in your life and just stay connected to Him all the way through your life before the days of trouble come and the years approach when you will say, I find no pleasure in them. Before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars grow dark. He's talking about that time in your life where you know that death is right around the corner. And the clouds return after the rain. He's talking about bouts of depression and despair that you go through the older you get. When the keepers of the house tremble. What do you think he's talking about there? He's talking about how your hands get shakier and shakier the older you get. And when strong men stoop, that's when you spend a lot of time at the chiropractor's office and your back goes out more often than you do. You know what I'm talking about? And the grinders cease because they are few. What's he talking about there? He's talking about your teeth that are starting to fall out and break down. And those looking through windows grow dim. He's talking about your eyesight. When the doors to the street are closed and the sound of grinding fades, talking about no longer able to go out and work on the job. When men rise up at the sound of birds, the older you get, the earlier you get up, right? And a lot of that's to get up to pee. All their songs grow faint. The birds are chirping early in the morning, but you can't hear them anyway because your hearing is going away. And men are afraid of heights where you say, I'm not getting up on that ladder ever again. Or of danger in the streets where you got 14 deadbolts on your door. When the almond tree blossoms, talking about when your hair grows white, and the grasshopper drags himself along like my buddy Jim, no hops anymore, and it's hard to walk. You kind of shuffle along. And desire is no longer stirred. You can figure that one out. Then man goes to his eternal home and mourners go about the streets. And all of that happens in the blink of an eye. Life is so short. Remember your Creator. In the days of your youth, hook up with God early on so you can live a lifetime, an eternity, doing life with the one who made you. Life is so short, but you need to know this second reflection. God is so faithful. Just like we've been singing all morning long. God is so faithful. You know, there's so much change going on in our country, in our world. I mean, all around us. Just things are constantly changing. All of us are going through constantly changing seasons. I would venture to say that every person on every one of our campuses is going through a different season of life right now. But look what it says about Jesus Christ. In the middle of all this constant change, it says this about him. Jesus Christ is the what? Same. Jesus Christ is the same. Yesterday, today, and forever. And since that is true, anchor your life to him. Because he is a rock. His promises are true. He always keeps his word. His love is 100% unfailing. He is so faithful. Life is so short, but God is so faithful. You know, I don't know. Maybe you are in this season right now in your life, and you got toys like this all over your house. I mean, it is just like you look at this and go, yeah, I got like 10 of those running around right now, and Legos everywhere, and you got car seats all over the back of your SUV or your minivan or whatever you drive around. You got car seats, and it's just kind of a crazy time right now in your life. It's a stressful time. You know what? Just lean into God during this time. I'm telling you, it goes like that. It's unbelievable how fast it goes. And just enjoy every day of this craziness of life right now. I love what Andy Stanley said one time. He said something like this: maybe what you do, and maybe the big contribution you're making to this world is not so much what you end up doing, but who you end up raising. So just pour your life into these little kids right now, knowing that God has entrusted you with them, and just lean on him in those times where it's just crazy and it's frazzle, and just pray like it says in Philippians chapter 4. Don't be anxious about anything, but pray about everything. And just thank him with gladness in your heart, and the peace of Christ will come. It'll settle you down. I'm telling you, his promises are true. He'll do exactly that. And just enjoy this season of your life. Now, I know there are others of you that look and you go, I wish we had this stuff around our house. Maybe you had some heartbreaks, like my son Drew and his wife Laura. I think it's 5 different miscarriages and infertility stuff, and it's a heartbreaking type of thing. And I know. And just lean into God. Same thing goes. He's faithful. He loves you. In fact, the Bible says he collects all of our tears in a bottle. He says, I know, I'm right there with you. He pulls up close to the brokenhearted, and he rescues those who are crushed in spirit. Just lean into him during this season of your life, and just trust him that he knows what he's doing in your life, and he's with you, and he's for you. You know, and maybe, you know, you're watching your kids grow up so fast, and, you know, some of you went to a preschool graduation this week, or maybe you went to a elementary, you know, your kids just getting out of elementary school. It just seems like it's flying by so fast. Can I just say a word to you? Just let them be kids. Just let them be kids. And kids, if you're in the room somewhere, you're listening to this, just be a kid. Just enjoy your life. Put baseball cards in your spokes and ride around, and just be a kid. Don't get your kids so focused on what they're going to be someday that they can't just be a kid. Just enjoy this season of your life. Sing and dance and be goofy, and just let God love you through this season of your life. I just the other day, right before I left, I was out back in the backyard with my granddaughter Tyler, and she's a trip. She's so funny. And she's putting all these different playlists, and she watches this show. Have you ever seen this show called World of Dance? Where they got all these different moves and stuff. She's out there practicing all these World of Dance moves, all these different songs. And I just thought, she just loves being a kid. And so just don't rush that phase of your life. Just enjoy being a kid. If you're a parent, let them be kids. You know, Jesus one day picked up a little kid. He said, unless you become like one of these, you'll never really enjoy or enter the kingdom of heaven. And so, man, don't rush this season of your life. Lean into God through the whole thing. And can I just say a word to those of you that might be in this season where everything is just a little wobbly? You know what I'm talking about? I think this represents that season of life pretty well. I just want to say to all of you who maybe you're getting ready to enter middle school, or maybe you're in middle school, or maybe you're getting ready to go into high school, and it's just things are just so uncertain right now in your life. Let the love of God define who you are. Don't let your friends do that for you. Don't let social media do that for you. Just know that you are who He says you are, like we sang today. That God knows who you are, and He loves you with an unconditional love. When He looks at you, He goes, you see that person right there? That's my masterpiece right there. Because I know in middle school, you feel goofy about everything going on in your life. And you just need to know that in this season of your life, you need to see yourself the way God sees you. That God was walking around heaven with His phone, like scrolling all these pictures going, check out my kid. Isn't she awesome? Isn't he unbelievable? God is proud of you. He sees you as His masterpiece. Live in the awareness of that every day of your life, even when things feel a little wobbly. And maybe, right now you're in that season where maybe you're in high school, or maybe you're graduating from high school. Maybe that just happened, and maybe you're getting ready to head off to college, and it's a little scary right now. I just prayed with a guy this morning who said, "Man, I'm single and I'm not going to school right now. I'm just scared." And that's a very real thing for a lot of people, scared about the future. Just know this: God says, I got you. I know the plans I have for you, plans to give you hope in the future. I'm going to use your life. Not only are you my masterpiece, but I created you to do some good stuff in this world a long time ago. He's got a plan for your life. Just embrace it, just every day of your life. Instead of getting a 5-year, 10-year plan, go, God, again today, just put some people in my path that need a touch from you, and I'm just going to follow you every day of my life, and wherever that takes me, let it be so. God, I just want to dive into the river of your wisdom, and wherever that flow wants to take me in my life, God, I'm open to it. Just embrace life that way, and let God lead you, because He wants to. He's faithful in doing that. And some of you might be parents of kids that have just done that. I don't know, maybe you just watched a graduation, or you watched a wedding, or you got one coming up, and you're just sitting there and you go, oh my goodness. I remember when they were like riding a big wheel, and here they are, they're walking down the aisle of a church, or they're walking across the stage, and they're getting a diploma. I can't believe how fast this has gone. And it's just kind of freaking you out right now. And it's just weird, because it's like they're leaving. And now you got this empty nest. Can I just tell you something about the empty nest thing? It's a myth. They come back, and they bring laundry and bills and kids. They just keep coming back, and I'm so grateful that they do come back, because we were created to do life together. And but just embrace that. Lean into God during this time, and thank Him for all the memories you have, and just talk about it and laugh about it. And I had so much fun just a couple of weeks ago. I got to hang out with my boys on a little golf trip. We played golf for 4 days, and it was really bad golf, but it was great camaraderie. And just to know that in this season of your life, that your kids are your best friends. I got to tell you guys, it's so deeply satisfying to see your kids loving God and touching the lives of other people, and just get to hang out together and just laugh and embrace it. This season doesn't last very long. And one of the reasons I picked this as a prop, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with riding a motorcycle. If you can ride it, cool. If you can get your leg over that, more power to you. But the reason I chose this, because I know a lot of guys, they kind of come out of that empty nest type season, or maybe they're kind of coming down to the end of a career. They go, I gotta find something. There's something missing. So they'll look for the next adrenaline rush. They'll look for something that's going to bring some thrills to their life. Let me tell you, the most thrilling thing you can do is follow Jesus through your life. And just do what He puts out there in front of you that next day, and just follow Him. He will give you enough adventure to last you through eternity. He just will. There's nothing better than just following Jesus with a sense of risk and faith and adventure and stepping into the unknown. I'm thinking about my buddy Brewster right now. He's the guy that came up with that whole prom for special needs students 20 years ago. He walked in my office one day. He goes, bro, I got an idea. He said, in Luke chapter 14, where Jesus said, when you throw a party, don't just invite your rich relatives and all your friends, but invite the poor, the blind, the crippled, the lame. He goes, what do you think Jesus meant by that? I said, well, I don't know. I think he meant, he goes, here's what I think Jesus meant by that. He said, when you throw a party, invite the poor, the blind, the crippled, the lame. And that's what he decided to do. He said, I want to throw this Jesus prom. And so for 20 years, this guy has been spearheading this prom for special needs students. He started a special needs camp. He just retired 2 months ago. He's only 62 years old. But he did 40 years of ministry at the same church. He just retired. He's opening up a coffee shop next week, a coffee shop that employs totally special needs folks. He just said, that's the next chapter of my life. I'm ready to do something else like that. And instead of looking for the next thrill, just look to do something significant with your life. I read a book years ago by Bob Buford called Halftime. You guys ever read this book? The premise of it is that what do you do at halftime in a ball game? You go in the locker room, you regroup, and you come out and you play hard, right, for the second half. Now, I look at it going, you know what? You watch teams, and sometimes it'll be fourth quarter. What do teams do in the fourth quarter? They circle up and do that, right? The fourth quarter. I look around this room. Some of y'all are in fourth quarter. I'm just being honest. Some of y'all in overtime. All of us are in sudden death, though. Is that right? Every single one of us are in sudden death. So why not, instead of looking for the next adrenaline rush, look for something significant to do with your days. To say, you know what, I'm going to come out smoking in the fourth quarter of my life. I'm going to be like Caleb in the Old Testament of the Bible, at 85 years old, said, give me the mountains. I want to fight the giants. I want to be that guy. Spend your days in significance. And that will be successful for the rest of your days. You know, I think about, whenever I see one of these, I think about Johnny Erickson Tata. Many of you have heard of her before. Incredible lady. I think she's in her 60s now. When she was 16, she had a diving accident and she broke her neck, and she's been a quadriplegic for 50 years now. And that hasn't stopped her, man. She's an incredible person. She's a songwriter, she's a singer, she's a teacher. She paints these incredible watercolor paintings by holding a brush between her teeth. I mean, it's remarkable. She started a ministry called Johnny and Friends, where she helps other folks who might have some kind of disability, and just make their lives count. And just an amazing woman. I read a book years ago she wrote called Heaven, My Real Home. In the book, there's a little piece she wrote in there. I stuck it in my heart years ago. It's called Johnny's Waltz. And she wrote, though I spend my mortal lifetime in this chair, I refuse to waste it living in despair. And though others may receive gifts of healing, I believe he has given me a gift beyond compare. For heaven is nearer to me, and at times it is all I can see. Sweet music I hear coming down to my ear, and I know that it's playing for me. For I am Christ's own bride, and I will stand by his side. And he will say, shall we dance? And our endless romance will be worth all the tears that I've cried. And sometimes we move to this stage in our life where not only do we find it hard to get around, but maybe some of you are in that stage where you're caring for some folks that are dear to you, maybe a mom or a dad or grandparent or spouse who just can't do what they used to do, and that's a tough season. I was talking to a friend yesterday who his father passed away and cleaning out all the stuff. You know, what a challenge that is to go through all that stuff, and some of you might be in that season right now. I was in that season a little earlier in my life than most of my peer group. My folks were in their 40s when they had me, and I'm an only kid. I think they looked at me and went, we're done. Not going to take that risk again. But because of that, they were older than most of my friends' parents by like 20 years. And so I entered into that season a little sooner than most, where the child becomes the parent becomes the child. And I think I've talked about this a little bit before here, but my dad, who was that decorated World War II vet, very eclectic guy that bought me the mail truck, my dad was also bipolar, and he dealt with some alcoholism in his life and compulsive gambler. Just had a lot of uncertainty in his life. I can't wait to see him again in his right mind. But he was a challenge. When he was 80 years old, he decided to go off his medication, which would calm him down. When he was off his medication, he was out of control. And he did things I can't even explain to you, the stuff he did. Things he bought, extravagant things he would buy just for no reason. He would just do it. So I'd have to take it all back. And I was an only kid, so I'm facing that challenge by myself. A buddy of mine calls me up one day. He says, "Bro, I just saw your dad. He was driving 100 miles an hour." I said, "Really?" He goes, "No, literally 100 miles an hour." I said, "Oh, I got to do something." So I had to go to my mom and dad's house, and because he'd had several accidents, and he was just out of control. And I said, "Dad, I'll take you anywhere you need to go, but you're going to have to give me your keys. You can't drive anymore." He looked at me like, "What?" I said, "Give me your keys. I'm sorry, but I will take you. I'll take you anywhere." Looked at me. It was the most sad day. I mean, here's the guy that taught me how to drive a mail truck. He taught me how to drive, and I'm taking the keys away from him. It was so hard. And he goes, "All right, give me his keys." And I left. I felt like a dog. Called back over to the house, said, "Mom, let me talk to Dad." She goes, "He's not here." I said, "What do you mean he's not there?" He said, "He went to the store." He went to the store. I mean, as soon as I left, he had like 5 sets of keys. Totally played me in the moment, acted all sad, like I'm abandoning him and all that. So I had to take all of his cars, all of his keys. It was just a challenging season. And one day, he crammed 250 years of living into 82 and just had a heart attack and went home to be with God, and I can't wait to see him again. Same time, all that was going on, my mom had Alzheimer's. And you talk about a challenging thing. And I think I've talked about that before here in detail, but when my dad passed away, it was really hard on her. She didn't know what was going on. She couldn't tell you that he passed away. And so she thought I was him. And it was just the strangest relationship for 7 years. I remember one time being out to dinner, she just staring at me. We had like 8 people at a table. She just kept staring at me. And finally, I just kind of said, "You okay?" She goes, "Where have you been?" She thought I was having an affair. I hadn't been home in a long time, And I mean, it was just that all the time where she told me a lady was living there. And I said, "Where is she?" And she took me in a room and she looked in the mirror and she goes, "There she is." And I had to take every mirror out of the house. I mean, I had like 8 different ladies living with me, a lot of mirrors, I'm just saying. Had all these mirrors. I had to take every mirror out of the house and take it home with me. It was just challenge after challenge after challenge after challenge until the day we had to move her into assisted living and then to skilled nursing. And then for the last 2 years, she didn't know who I was. And just to know through all of it that God was faithful. Can I just say something to those of you that might be in that season right now in your life? You know what your job is? Bring the joy. Just shine. Like Jesus said, you're the light of the world. When you walk in that house, you walk in that nursing home room, you just bring the joy, you bring the light. I just learned through the whole thing, especially with the Alzheimer's struggle, I just learned to say, "So what?" a lot. So what? She wants to eat ice cream for breakfast. It's okay. So what? She wants to change the furniture every day and move it around. It's okay. So what? Just bring the joy and just be this presence of God in that person's life, because life is short. Paul calls it our light and momentary troubles. It's gone like that too. But God is faithful through the whole thing, no matter what that season you're going through. I was reading this scripture the other day from Isaiah 54 about God's unfailing love. It says, "For even if the mountains walk away and the hills fall to pieces, my love won't walk away from you. My covenant commitment of peace won't fall apart. The God who has compassion on you, he says so." And what he says, he does. Life is short, man. God is so faithful. So what I'd like for us to do at all of our campuses right now, I'm just going to ask you to stand up, and we're going to read the scripture together. And I want to read this. It's from Psalm 136. And the Psalms in the Old Testament section of the Bible are just a collection of playlists, like they're songs that a songwriter wrote, a praise to God or just pouring out their heart. But this is one of those that was written like a song, where there's like a verse and then a refrain coming back. So I'm going to ask you guys to do the second half of each little verse where it says his love endures forever. So you guys can do that together. I'll read the first part, then all in one voice we'll say, "For his love endures forever." Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His love endures forever. Yeah, give thanks to the God of gods. His love endures forever. Come on, you got to do it strong. Give thanks to the Lord of Lords.
His love endures forever.
To him who alone who does great wonders.
His love endures forever.
Who by his understandings made the heavens.
His love endures forever.
Who spread out the earth upon the waters.
His love endures forever.
Who made the great lights.
His love endures forever.
The sun to govern the day.
His love endures forever.
The moon and stars to govern the night. Give thanks to the God of heaven. His love endures forever. Life is short, but God is faithful. And I'm telling you, gang, his love endures forever. From the walker to the walker. Father, thank you for your love. Thank you for your promises. Thank you for your faithfulness. God, we know that our time on this earth is short. We acknowledge that. Sometimes we don't stop to reflect upon that. But I thank you that today we could kind of pause and go, yeah, I'm not here for long. And I'm going to savor every moment along the way. And I'm going to lean into God at every season of my life, no matter what challenges are going on in my life, no matter what season I'm in, no matter how hard it gets. I'm just going to lean into the God who is faithful and promises that he's going to be there for me, going to be there with me. God, it's good to be reminded of that today. God, I thank you that, thinking how Dallas Willard used to say, eternity is now in session. That once we come into a relationship with Jesus Christ, eternal life doesn't start someday when we die, but it starts right now. So even though our time here is short, our life is not. Our life will just continue on. And I thank you, God, that maybe what we do here while we're on this planet will live on and make a difference long after we're dead and gone from this place. I thank you for the way that our life has a ripple effect on other people's lives. And God, I pray for young families this weekend. I pray for single adults. I pray for kids. I pray for middle school students and high school students and college students at all of our campuses. That they would just know that they are deeply, deeply loved by you and treasured by you. And no matter what anybody says, no matter what any mirror says back at them, no matter what anybody puts on social media about them, that they know the truth of who they are in your eyes. A much-loved child of God. God, I pray that that would just go deep into their soul today. For people that are facing new challenges with jobs, or maybe they're moving to a new place, or maybe they are heading off to college, or maybe some are heading off to serve our country somewhere, God. I pray that you would just let them know that perfect love is going with them, and that perfect love will cast out all their fear and anxiety. God, for those of us that are in a challenging season where we're trying to figure out what are we going to do in the fourth quarter, God, I pray that you would move us to a sense of significance and passion. God, I know there's a number of people at all of our campuses here that are at that season of their life where maybe they don't have to work the way they used to work, and they got some additional time now in their life. God, I pray that you would move us towards significance, that we'd be involved in the lives of people and just making Jesus known in this world. God, help us not to just look for the next adrenaline rush, but to let it be an adrenaline rush enough to follow you, Jesus. And for those, God, that are in that challenging season of getting older and health breaking down and losing spouses and friends, and God, I just pray that they would hear you say every day, well done. Way to be faithful, way to love like I have loved you. God, help us to love each other like that. Help us to bring the joy into each other's lives, and help us to serve each other as you served us. God, thank you that you're faithful from the walker to the walker, and I pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.